powering your afternoons Monday through Friday on Sactown Sports.
Tomorrow night, we got the Kings and the Lakers. Big game. Kyle Draper on his way to L.A. They probably arrived by now for the game tomorrow. So it's Whitey and Jay today, and nice enough to join us now. Well, it always takes me 10 minutes just to go through everything he's done for the Kings. Former Kings coach, general manager, director of player personnel, and TV analyst, just to name a few.
Legend.
Yeah, absolutely. Kings icon, Jerry Reynolds. How are you today, Coach?
Not good. I'm still pouting from last night, just to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I just really enjoyed you talking to some fans, and I'm a fan. That's what I am. And I was just thinking, it kind of reminds me of being in the 8th grade, and all of a sudden the class hottie flirts with you a little bit on Monday, and you're just sky high, and then on Tuesday you see her walking down the hall with a 9th grader, and it's like, damn, there you are, and so that's kind of how I took it,
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I mentioned Jerry texted me this morning, and it was an angry face emoji. That's what that angry face emoji is, the one that he sent me. Jerry, I was dismayed last night by their lack of execution late game. Was that something that you watching that? Were you a little surprised by that?
Well, little. I mean, although that's been a little, when you really look at their bad losses, that's almost been a consistency, is that they haven't been very efficient down the stretch of games. And I've always thought, and I've second guessed this before, is that I just wish, late game situations, I don't think has changed much since 1980. In the last 6 minutes of the game, it gets more physical. Refs let more stuff go, and you've got to work harder for your shots. And I think when you look at kind of the more elite teams, they have more need plays or situations they go to. And I think the Kings, to their credit, they've got a couple of guys who are great creators late, like Fox and Monk. But there again, I just think they need more ways of getting Keegan Murray a shot, ways of getting more guys, when the ISOs really aren't effective, have something you feel like you can really go to get more people involved.
Legend. I'm gonna stay right there because you, as Whitey introduced you, you've held every single cap there is in basketball. And so with that being said, the out of bounds play last night where De'Aaron overshot Malik Monk, one of the things I thought was the spacing just didn't look right. And we all know the pressures of, inbounding, or we don't all, but if you've been in that position, sometimes it can be a hot potato situation. But what did your eyes tell you on that out of bounds play?
Well, I didn't look like they really were on kind of in rhythm with each other to start with, and I'll say this about out of bounds plays: they're always tougher than people think.
Yeah.
Because basically the guy throwing it in bounds, he's got 4 guys to throw it to. They've actually got 5 defenders. Mm-hmm. So it's not automatic, but you should be able to get it in. And I think if you know exactly what your one option is, and then if that's not there, what your second option, third option, just like a quarterback, you've got to kind of know your sequence and of what's open, what's not open. And it certainly appeared to me that for whatever reason, that didn't happen.
Yeah. Jerry Reynolds with us here on Sactown Sports. You were just talking about getting the ball to some of your scorers down the stretch. Malik Monk, who won the game Friday, as you know, Jerry, last night he played the whole fourth quarter. He only took 1 shot. Is that a sign of something maybe being a little, to use the basketball term, out of whack?
A little bit, now certainly the team you're playing has something to do with who gets what shots. They can make it tougher, and certainly Monk is a guy, against Minnesota, he was a true monkster. Yeah. But he can't. Nobody can get 35 every half,
right. Right.
And so, they were aware, I'm sure, that he's such a key. But having said that, he's a guy that you really in the fourth quarter want to be involved almost as much as Fox. I mean, those are the two guys that can create their own shot, and so if they're not creating their own shot, then maybe help them get shots.
Jerry, there has been a lot of I guess I wouldn't say kickback. It feels like over the last month or month and a half about certain intricacies of play calling, timeouts, a few different things that I think most people will coincide with coaching. Because you've done every single thing, like how would you go about some of those, like and I guess I'm asking 2, 3, 4 games in a row, a few things don't go your way as a coach, and maybe you see something being called out upon you. Like, how would you go about responding to that?
Well, I do think that, Coach Brown, I think he just does a terrific job. I think, that he might, certainly in locker room situations, he might have to hurt a few more feelings, because, and not that you're ever going to say anything publicly, but I don't know what goes on in the locker room. But then again, in the timeout situation, I sometimes, now this is just, my opinion, it probably is wrong, but I see too many voices. To me, when you really in that huddle, in my mind, there needs to be one voice, period. That's the head coach, unless in this case you've got enough coaches where maybe he wants Jay Triano to be the voice. You know what I'm saying? But you can't have 2 or 3 guys trying to talk to different players. That's, in other words, that just, I always kind of got that from Rick Adelman. I mean, he had really great staff, as does Coach Brown. But, I mean, that was just kind of one of those, a little thing, but maybe it's not a little thing.
Interesting. So, Jared, pretty big game against your less than favorite team, the Lakers, tomorrow night all of a sudden, huh? This is a big game.
Oh, boy. Yeah, and it just, I'm scared to death. I mean, they're playing pretty good, and LeBron, you always got a chance to get beat if LeBron's playing, and he's playing well. They're playing better. I mean, they can be beat. I don't think they're as good as a couple other teams in the West, but they're trying to get where the Kings are.
Yeah.
And big game for them. That's the part scares me. It's a big game for them. Clearly, it's a big game for the Kings. And a lot of times in years past, it hadn't been a big game for the Lakers. And so, yeah, I just wish them the worst. I don't know how much more I can do.
Joined by the legendary Jerry Reynolds. Legend, do you think the Kings are getting everyone's, I don't want to say best game, because I'm pretty sure teams aren't coming in here, gearing up for the Kings like they're gearing up for the Denver Nuggets, so to say. But I think they're getting close to what some of these teams' best games. Are you seeing that?
Oh, yeah, I agree. I think that's part of the problem. I mean, so to speak, because number one is I think teams are better prepared to play the Kings with the style of play that the Kings really were successful with last year. I felt like early in the year, you could tell the difference to where after made baskets, the Kings aren't really getting as many open opportunities where they're able to push and get easy open transition baskets. I think a lot of that's been taken away, or teams really are aware of the fast pace that they want to play with, and they've slowed them down. And if you get the ball stopped and everything and really match up quickly after made baskets, you can slow teams down. And we're seeing more teams doing that, I think, just to their credit. I mean, or said the league scouts, and they know how important Domas is to running the offense, and he's getting a lot more attention. Especially when he puts the ball down in traffic, they're sending guys at him from different places. So I think it's sometimes it is just the little things. I mean, this team is a good team. I enjoy the heck out of them most of the time. I mean, they're fun. They're a bunch of good guys. But the West is so tough. I think I heard Jay talk earlier. I mean, this team could use a dog. I would agree. I mean, I never thought I'd say we need a Pat Beverly, but maybe we need a Pat Beverly.
Well, I remember earlier this year you said it would be nice if the Kings could get somebody like DeMar DeRozan. They sure could have used him last night.
Yeah. Well, that's the way it goes. I mean, it's, every team has talent, and that's sometimes, I mean, the Bulls, certainly with DeRozan been a many-time All-Star. Kobe White's on his way to being an All-Star level player after a couple of years. And I mean, so if you're not, if your main guys aren't having strong games or your bench is not producing, you're open to get beat by anybody. I mean, I think we seeing the Spurs and the Pistons beat some teams now. The league, how some young players are at the start of the year aren't necessarily how they are at the end. They're getting better in some cases are not. But I don't know. I mean, I just think it's a ways to go, but I'm trying to be positive in the fact clearly they're an inconsistent team, and they sometimes let leads. I think they lose leads more than most teams, primarily because they're so dependent on the 3-point shot.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody hits a hyper, in other words, a good shooting 3-point team is not going to shoot them every 10 minutes stretch. And so you really need, to kind of have a way of getting to the line and getting inside a little more, dribble drives like we see, I think, with the Nuggets and some of those teams or Boston. They shoot a lot of threes, but they will take it to the rim,
Yeah.
So,
Coach, you played basketball, you've coached every level. In your opinion, in your experience, how important is it to make a free throw now and then?
It really doesn't amount to much if you're not interested in lighting up the scoreboard.
I got you.
And
I know they did last night. They did last night, in all fairness.
Yeah, they did. They did a great. That's one area they did great. But as you say, that's been such a bugaboo, and we're terrific shooters. Like Monk has had stretches where he doesn't make them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have an explanation for that. I mean, but it's cost them games.
Mm-hmm.
It's cost them a couple of games. There's no doubt about it. Now, I think it's very possible that this team is, may start winning some games because of free throws. I mean, that's the way this league is. Guys go through periods, teams go through periods. We saw the Bucks struggled where they weren't very good for a couple of weeks. Now they're really good again. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of what I'm hoping for. I like I say, I just listening to some of the fans' opinions, and I wouldn't disagree with any of those things. Certainly at times they get a little full of themselves, with a big lead. You got to be careful about pumping your chest too much, until the game's over. Then you can just puff it out there all you want to.
Joined by the legendary Jerry Reynolds.
Spitting today, Jack.
Yeah, he is. Legend, but what, and I know I'm pretty sure you've probably thrown down your tea or your coffee a couple of times this year watching the defense play by the Sacramento Kings. Or popcorn.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. I really can't eat popcorn because I choke on it sometimes. But yeah, and that really is the truth. And I mean, it's no surprise to Coach Brown and his staff. I mean, defensively, it's just not a good team. Defensively, I think they're working harder at it. I certainly think Fox has improved dramatically, Keegan Murray. So there's been some improvements, but the point is they've improved less defensively than they have lost offensively. and I think probably in the off season, and I think Whitey and I talked about this a few times, but I think they really counted on Vesnikov really making a difference offensively, just giving them the chance and Duarte to become a better offensive team, and that would make up some for the defensive deficiencies. Well, that would have been true had that turned out that way, which it hasn't.
Yeah.
And so now you've got basically running it back kind of with the same guys, and teams are better prepared for you.
Yeah.
And then add the fact that the West is simply loaded, which they were last year when they were, except all the teams got guys hurt. And so, yeah, it's just a different circumstance. I mean, the way I look at it, and I'm probably a little too negative, but I just look at the top 4 teams in the West, and honestly, I don't. And the Kings have beaten them, but I don't think the Kings are as good as they are.
Yeah,
And they're just not as talented, and I don't know what you do about that.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think this is a team that still is a work in progress, and I'm sure Monty McNair knows that, and they really do need, in my opinion, a couple of more pieces. I mean, it's certainly a 4 or 5 backup guy, athletic backup guy, and a 2-3 wing that can guard 2 positions and is athletic and. Of course, obviously, in both cases, need to be able to shoot the 3 ball. I mean, it's spotting the problem and solving it's 2 different things. And as you pointed out earlier, keeping Monk is a key. I mean, you don't get I think they got a chance to keep him mainly because a lot of teams love him and but they don't have cap room. So that's the best thing going for the Kings. they don't have cap room for the ones that probably really would love to get him.
Jerry Reynolds with us, of course. I'm wondering if you could speak to this, if you would, as from the eyes of someone who was a head coach. The team, they've had ups and downs, and so the coach he's criticized, and people have been criticizing like last night. Oh, you have to double those guys, and it was similar with the Heat game where Mike Brown, after both games, he said. And he was trying not to, he don't want to throw anybody under the bus. He's basically saying, we can't double like 3 guys, because then you're running all over the place. But given the issues they've had keeping the ball out of the paint, I mean, that's really where the defense is breaking down, right? And you can't send extra guys at like 3 different guys, or you just don't have enough players to do that.
No, that really to me is exactly, and then Coach Brown's right. I mean, you could run a second guy at 1 guy, and then rotate and cover it, but you can't do 2. And that's why with the problem the Kings had last night. I mean, they had 2 guys that they couldn't defend, and they couldn't afford to double both of them. And
then you had that Ayo Dosunmu too, and he was just going right around.
And he was breaking them down. But I do think. In simplified terms, their biggest problem is, like say, just defending the wings and stopping the drives to the basket. They're just getting in there too much. I think, the Kings playing a zone some and trapping more. I think they're trying to do some things that could eventually help them get a little better, and that's all you can hope for at this stage, to get a little better. But that's kind of where it starts. I mean. If you're not going to score at the premium rate, then and you can't guard people, you're going to have bad games, and that's kind of where it is. They're not. Your offense is going great in third quarter, and you're knocking down shots and getting dunks, and looks like wow, and then all of a sudden your shots don't go down, and and they're getting exactly the shots they want. And that's how games, anyway, I'm like about everybody else, I haven't said that. If they go down there and beat the Lakers, then I'll give them a pass on everything they've ever done.
I wanted to ask you about this, Jared. Last night, a piece of Kings history in a way was made, and you're the perfect person to put this in perspective for us. Harrison Barnes, according to Sean Cunningham, HB now the 7th player in the Kings era, Sacramento era, to appear in 200 consecutive games. So it's Eddie Johnson, Buddy Hield, LaSalle Thompson, Otis Thorpe, Jason Thompson, and Ben McLemore. Those are the 7 guys now, 200 consecutive games as Sacramento Kings. Any thoughts on any of those guys, or what kind of team would those 7 guys make? Huh? What kind of team would that be? HB, Eddie, Buddy Hield, Tank, Otis Thorpe, Jason Thompson, and Ben McLemore.
Well, you wouldn't have to measure for a ring, I can tell you that.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean,
I'd get some rebounds, though, wouldn't I?
Well, Tank could get you some rebounds, and Thorpe certainly would, and so rebounding wouldn't be a problem. And you got shooters, Eddie Johnson, and so that I don't know just exactly where you'd play McLemore or Jason Thompson. It is amazing in this day and age. And fairness to Harrison, I mean, he has been such a durable guy in a league that isn't very durable. If you know,
Yeah.
I mean, and one of those guys that is a good player, maybe just not as good as you want him to be, but he's had a good career. And but yeah, he's available. And that's still a key thing. I think that's the amazing thing with Domas and Keegan Murray and Monk. They've been there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and can't take that for granted. But yeah, yeah. Of course, part of the way of staying, basically being durable, is not playing very many minutes every night.
Yeah.
So that may be part of it too.
Hey, didn't you, when you were coaching Tank, didn't you try to run a play for him and he couldn't remember how it went or something?
Yeah, well, it's one of those deals early in the years, I recall, and of course we had lots more set plays in those days, and a lot for Reggie and Eddie and guys like that. And Tank got his feelings hurt one time and was saying, you ever have a play for me? So we put one in. We're getting ready to play the Pacers, and our pregame thing or shoot around was pretty much going to put a play in for Tank. And so we put it in, called it Texas, because that's where he went to school.
Uh-huh.
And so about the first time down the floor or something, we called Texas, and Tank screwed it up. and so we, a little later, next time down, we ran it again and called Texas, and he screwed it up again. So I called timeout, and of course, guys were busting his chops. But I didn't say anything really. Anyway, and Tank said, bless his heart, one of the nicest guys who ever lived, said, I don't want any plays. Don't call any plays for me anymore.
Jerry Reynolds. Yeah.
And so I said,
did you?
Okay.
Yeah. You didn't run any more plays for Tank after that?
Nope. Bless his heart. He didn't need them though. I'll say that for Tank. He was a little bit like Domas. He's gonna get his doubles the hard way.
Yeah. Thanks, Jerry. Great stuff. Here we were kidding. We said, maybe Jerry can explain everything, and you pretty much did. So thank you. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again soon.
Well, if I made sense, then you're all in trouble.
Thank you, Jerry.
Okay, see you guys.
All right, take care. Beat the Lakers. Jerry doesn't like the Lakers. Coming up, we've got, here you go, 3 reasons Kings fans can still be optimistic. I only have 2 right now, but I still have time to come up with a third before
the third is Jerry Reynolds.
Yeah, there you go. It's a Drive, guys, on Sactown Sports.